Do your coloring projects have a slightly immature or unsophisticated look? You color neatly, you use good technique, and your color blends are as smooth as silk. You're doing everything right. And yet it still looks like something a fifth grader colored. Today, we're looking at how to make your best coloring look more cohesive and more professional by improving the way you use color. It's a common problem in the coloring world. People get really good at blending technique. You can blend any two markers together smoothly and seamlessly, like butter. Or with colored pencils, you can layer and graduate the color almost like a professional. It's what an artist would call technical proficiency. You understand how to use your tools. Once you get to an intermediate level of technical proficiency, you can take any coloring class or follow any online tutorial and produce a project that looks just as good or even better than the class sample. It feels good to color something as nicely as the instructor has. But then something weird happens when you're coloring all on your own, doing marker projects by yourself. You color really well with the same skill and careful neatness that you always do. The blends are great, the transitions are smooth, and yet the project just doesn't sing. It looks a little weird, a little unpolished, a little like something a kid would do. And you just don't get it. You're doing everything right, so why doesn't it look right? You start to doubt your skills. Maybe it's you. After all, you don't have this kind of problem when you're following someone else's supply list. Relax, it's not you. It's your color palette. Even the best coloring looks bad when the color palette is bad. One of the problems with online coloring tutorials and project-based coloring classes is that they teach you how to color one specific stamp in one specific way. The instructor tells you what colors to buy, and then they walk you through every step of the process, where to put this color and where to put that color. And it works. It's a really effective method to get 20 or even 200 people to walk out of class with an amazing looking project every single time. The instructor, though, they do a lot of footwork and preparation to make sure that their students get very high success rates. They figure out which colors look best. They plan out the best way to get every area to look amazing. The instructor does 90% of the thinking for you before you even sign up for the class. But when you're coloring at home, most people don't do that kind of 90% preparation and planning for themselves. Most colorers don't plan at all, and it shows. Take this Jellybean digital stamp image as an example. How would you color this stamp? I know what many of you would do. You'd sit down at your desk and look at all the beans and get really excited at the prospect of using lots of pretty colors. But where to start? So much potential, so many colors. So you grab your favorite color, let's say blue, and you color one bean blue. And it looks great, so you grab another color, maybe your second favorite color, lavender, and you color one bean lavender. And then you do a red bean and a pink bean and your favorite green marker combination. And you keep going like this, grabbing colors. There are 60 different beans in this coloring image, and some people would use 60 different blending combinations to color 60 different beans. I think most people would give up at about 15 beans. There's just too many beans to color all of them differently, so you start repeating a few colors here and there. But the effect is the same whether you use 60 different colors or you use 15 colors 4 times each. It doesn't look good. It looks like a mess. That's because you grabbed colors willy-nilly without thinking first. This is what I call a color riot or a color circus. No matter how neatly you color, no matter how skilled you are, a color circus is always going to look like it was hit by a tornado. At a real circus, the tightrope walkers, they wear bright colors to attract your attention while they're performing. They want you to look at them. But here's the problem. The trapeze artists also wear bright colors, And so do the clowns, and even the elephants get dressed up. And all the props, and all the scenery, and all the lights. It's all designed to attract your eye. But all of that color leaves you with no idea where to look. It all starts to blur into each other. Look at this carousel photo. It's full of gorgeous color, but it's too much. We can't tell what's going on here because every single color is screaming out, "Look at me, look at me." And that's what color grabbing does to your coloring projects. You use too many colors. It's too much. It's rainbow vomit. If you don't plan ahead, if you don't show some restraint, if you grab all your favorite colors and use them all together, it doesn't matter how awesome and amazing your coloring skills are. It looks like a mess because it's rainbow vomit. One of the mistakes that colorers make is to assume that professional artists have so much talent that they never have color circus problems. And colorers think the same thing about their coloring heroes too. You see tutorials on blogs and videos on YouTube, and they look so great because the instructor is just so talented. Whoa, it's not talent, it's planning. And you can do it too. Planned color makes for a polished looking project. I know you've been to color palette websites before. These sites are like candy to people who like color because it's all so darned pretty. So you know the term color palette, and I know you know that artists use color palettes to tell color stories in their artwork. But how many times have you actually sat down and planned out your own color story before you started coloring? That's what's missing in your projects. That's why your own original projects don't look as good as the ones that you do in a class, because the instructor planned out the color palette for you. If you want that professional and polished look, you have to curate your own color. It's not talent, it's curated color. Cohesive and well thought through color palettes make for professional looking presentations. So this is a photo reference, and it's the one that we're using in the Jellybean online art class. And the photographer here has done some color curation for us already. You'll notice there are no black jelly beans here. There's no purple ones, no navy blue beans with yellow dots on them. The photographer knew that too many colors would set up a color circus. But to teach this as a class, I went one step further. In this image, I count 3 different green jelly bean colors. There are translucent dark greens, there's opaque light greens, and back there's a few paler chartreuse beans. Not in my class though. I simplified them all to one kind of green. There are 3 different oranges here too. Dark orange, medium orange, and pastel peach beans. Not in my class, they're all the same orange. See how I'm reducing the color palette even further than what the photographer did? I'm making the supply list smaller, but I'm also throwing out some of the colors that don't add anything important to my color story. I also noticed that my eye kept going to that one blue bean. Now, I kind of liked the pop of bright blue, but I didn't like how that one bean kept drawing my attention. So I took that blue and I sprinkled it in a few other places. Now the blue keeps your eye moving gently across the entire pile of beans. And I did all of this thinking before I ever picked up a single marker. I planned ahead of time. I experimented on a few test samples, making sure that I was not creating a color circus. Color curation is actually more common than you realize. Painters, photographers, advertisers, and movie makers do it all the time. Because the goal is to convey a message, a feeling, or a theme. Creative professionals are very conscious about what colors we use and what colors we exclude. A movie about winter will surround you with cool colors. And this city looks more impersonal and isolating when it's shown in black and white. Even this rainbow assortment of jelly beans has been curated to include just a few basic colors. Compare that to my photo here about what comes in a normal jar of jelly beans. Color curation is why this looks appealing and this looks sloppy. So for the Jellybean class photo reference, we were lucky that the photographer did some color curation for us at the start. But what if you're not so lucky? Or what if you want to tell a totally new color story? Here's that same Jellybean stamp, but with a different color palette. Let me show you how I created this palette from scratch, and I avoided the color circus. For this version, I was asked to color an Easter image using the traditional pinks, purples, and yellows that are really common in spring images. And I think this was the kind of color palette that the person had in mind. But I'm not into the rainbow vomit look. So I thought really hard and I contemplated how to make pink, purple, and yellow look sophisticated. So here are those challenge colors, and to me, the yellow kept screaming the loudest. So I swapped it out for a golden, more buttery yellow. It's still yellow, but this instantly makes the palette look less preschool and more adult. The next thing I did was to swap out the purple for a violet. Pink, yellow, and even purple are all warm colors, so this was an easy switch. By moving the warm purple to a cool violet, I still have that purple feeling, but it creates a bit of temperature balance by introducing some coolness to offset all the warmth. So this is what I had at that point: butter yellow, traditional pink, and a medium violet. Now there are a lot of Jellybeans in this pile, too many to use just 3 colors. And here's where many of you would be tempted to throw in a green or a blue. Don't do it. Let's keep this color story simple and circus-free. What I noticed about my 3 colors is that all 3 of them were about the same value. They're all medium. They're not too light, not too dark. So I took that violet and I added a darker version of it. And then I took the pink and added a very dark version of it. This is actually a pretty nice, fairly sophisticated take on spring. It felt a little too cool though, so I added a pink value that was like in between the light and the dark, but I shifted it warmer into the red family. And that's how my color story, my spring but not too spring color palette, was born. You can do the same thing. Let's try it again. Okay, so let's say your favorite color is lime green, and you love yellow and you love blue. That's a pretty good start. Let's take that green and add a darker version of it so that we have a little variety in our story. Then let's take the yellow and add a very pale version of it. Even more variety. I like this just as it is, but you could also add a pale green for extra range. See? By sticking to the 3 main colors and only adding versions of those 3, we're keeping the color story simple. But what if you're not coloring Jellybeans? Does this work on other images? Of course, you could use this same color palette on these daffodils. And here's another take on the blue, green, yellow color palette, the one that I used in my face coloring tutorial. We've got a light and a dark green, light and dark blues, and a warm yellow counterbalancing it all. It's just 3 colors, and I use a light, a medium, and a dark version of them to add more color and to create balance. Creating your own sophisticated color palettes is easier than you think, and as a color lover, you're going to have a ton of fun doing it. You can avoid the rainbow vomit by planning ahead. You can prevent the color riot by thinking about the project and experimenting with your color palette before you start coloring. You can create professional-looking projects that are just as good as any class offering or tutorial that you've seen, just by doing the same kind of planning that instructors and artists do. It's the advanced thinking that makes a difference. It's thinking in advance that makes a difference. That's what takes your skills to the next level. You can have all the talent in the world, but if your color palette looks like a circus, the entire project looks bad. Plan your colors. Think it through. You can do this.